Therefore, a higher kind of understanding emerges from the philosopher. The beliefs that he now has, in the same way, are the kinds of beliefs that can only be confirmed in that kind of vision. The kind of ignorance that he now has is a different kind of ignorance. Because in the everyday way of looking at knowledge, this is not knowing. It's not an object of knowledge as understood by any one of these three systems. You can even call it a divine ignorance, an agnostic, a non-knowing. Now, it didn't help us a bit. Why does it follow that if someone has an experience of the nature of reality, perfection of beauty, with the mind, beatific vision, why would anyone want to say it discloses something about the nature of the self? And I'd like to read one line out of Plato's dialogue, the Alcibiades, which a friend of mine translated. This is Alcibiades 132c. And next, what way do we turn, wishing to know this most brilliantly? Since when we know this appropriately, we will know ourselves also. With the gods present, do we not understand the well-said Delphic inscription which we recalled just now? With what intention do you say such a thing, Socrates, says Alcibiades? Soc comes back and says, I will declare what I at least suspect this inscription means and the advice. As knowing this thing which is most brilliant. For if you know that, then you know ourselves also, or we know ourselves also. That's Plato. Because there aren't two things, the self and reality. The reality of the self and the self of reality is the same thing. Now, why that is a delicious thing to wonder about. Therefore, it justifies the quest for a vision of reality. It justifies the quest for knowing yourself. It justifies the quest for beauty and the perfection of beauty. It justifies, therefore, a love for it and a way of then getting out of one's own belief structures to understand a way to achieve it. And when that's culminated in a vision, a contemplation of knowing, then one knows oneself. Therefore, the philosopher, therefore, moves from a comic figure to a tragic figure to himself as he proceeds through each of these. Because then he learns something new about himself he could never have guessed. It's not a fact, so he goes beyond the tragedian. He goes beyond the comic figure, obviously. And rather than reduce things to the absurd, he raises things to the highest value. And therefore he culminates those three things, the comic, the tragic, into philosophy. And therefore, would you not agree that in that experience you have to let go of both what you understand and believe? And that letting go in utter freedom can be represented as a satyr play on the physical level, or as the tragic figure in the conclusion, when he has to let go of everything and accepts himself for what he is, the cause of his own disaster. And therefore, tragedy, comedy, and philosophy have an intimate role to play among themselves, back and forth. And therefore, I would say we need more comedies in life, satyr plays, and especially sexuality in a noble way of representing the comic aspect of man. Because when you take the bottom level as real, you're a comic figure yourself, which we are. We're all three. So thank you. That's what I wanted to do. And I'll hear anything you have so long as you start it with a joke. So we'll have prizes given to the best satyr play next month. Thank you.
What was the authorities, was that an additional element to the satyr play? Their sexuality?
Yes.
Authoritarianism
Yes.
or something?
Yes, they have to be officious people, right? Who are caught in certain scenes, you know, with erections and things like that, and nudity, and yeah, because then you take something that's regarded with a certain reverence or respect, and then you show the other side of it, which is the comic side of it, which is the everyday. And so therefore it has all of those common things that make us chuckle and make fun of our own illusions.
Well, it seems like in our politics we have that.
Yes, yes, we have some of it in politics, don't we? Yeah, yeah. Doonesbury. Right, he's good at that, yeah. But, see, we made, in this culture that we have, we can't face comedies based upon sexuality because there's so much guilt and judgments made about even discussing and portraying sexuality, that it's difficult to kind of, in all fairness, to try to establish some fair view of it. Like from scholars know that there's whole warehouses full of pornographic art sculpting in the Greek world that's basically kept in warehouses. Our culture is heavily influenced by its roots, Christianity, Judaism. And therefore we can't face that letting go the way those people did in that age. And also, by the way, they, of course, added to it wine and the whole comedy of life. They wanted to turn everything, let go of everything, let go of everything. Maximize letting go as a comedy. Show it in its most brutal form, its comic form, foolish form. That is to show the foolishness of everyday life. Which it is, right? Yeah.
So the relationship between comic and philosopher is that the philosopher is in the states that the comic has been in and takes himself out of that?
Well, there are two levels. One is that from an audience viewpoint, you can certainly portray a philosopher in a comic situation. Right? Because they don't have the same values. Their judgments are foolish. They're not wise. They're not based upon models of success necessarily, or most often not. So they can be good objects of humor. Make fun of them. I think so. I think they're very funny myself. Socrates is funny. I mean, he's a comic figure, isn't he?